What it's like to escape a secret prison. Imagine waking up in a room with no windows, no clock, and no idea where you are. The walls are cold concrete. A single light stays on above you day and night. There is a heavy metal door, but there is no handle on your side. You don't know how long you've been there. You don't know who is watching. And worst of all, you don't know if anyone outside even knows you're missing. This is what life inside a secret prison could feel like, and escaping would mean more than simply finding a way through a locked door. It would mean surviving fear, exhaustion, uncertainty, and the constant possibility of being caught. The first thing you would lose is your sense of time. In an ordinary prison, there might be schedules, guards, meals, or other prisoners to remind you that the outside world still exists. In a secret facility, isolation itself becomes a weapon. Without sunlight or a clock, your brain begins to lose its normal rhythm. You might sleep at strange hours. You might wake up believing it is morning when it is actually midnight. Every day begins to feel exactly like the one before it. And that creates the first challenge of escape, staying mentally strong enough to keep thinking clearly. You would quickly learn that panic is your enemy. The moment you realize you are trapped, your body wants to fight or run. Your heart races, your breathing becomes faster, your mind starts imagining the worst possible outcomes. But escaping a place like this would require patience. You would need to observe everything. When do the guards arrive? How often does the door open? What sounds can you hear beyond the walls? Is there ventilation? Are there cameras? Are there other rooms nearby? Every tiny detail could become important. The goal would not be to act immediately. The goal would be to understand the environment. Then comes the hardest part, finding an opportunity. Secret facilities would likely be designed around layers of security. One locked door might lead to another. A corridor might have cameras. Guards might follow routines designed to prevent predictable weaknesses. Even if you discovered a possible way out, you would still have to decide whether the opportunity was real or a trap. One mistake could end the escape before it even begins. And then something unexpected happens. During a routine moment, you notice that the door doesn't close completely. Maybe there is a brief maintenance problem. Maybe a guard becomes distracted. Maybe a power failure affects part of the building. You don't know how long the opportunity will last. 10 seconds? 30 seconds? A minute? Your entire future could depend on that tiny window. You step outside.
For the first time in what feels like forever, you are no longer inside the cell. But instead of freedom, you discover something even more frightening. You have no idea where you are. The corridor is dark. There are unfamiliar doors everywhere. You hear footsteps somewhere in the distance. You freeze. Then you hear a door closing. Someone is coming. You move quickly but quietly, searching for a route that leads away from the occupied areas. You don't know the building's layout, so every turn is a gamble. A hallway that looks promising could lead directly towards security. Another could take you deeper into the facility. This is where survival becomes a battle between speed and caution. Running feels natural, but running blindly could get you caught. Staying too long in one place could be just as dangerous. You have to keep moving while constantly listening for changes around you. Every sound becomes amplified. The hum of electricity, footsteps, ventilation fans, even your own breathing. Eventually, you discover something that changes everything: an emergency exit. For the first time, you see a symbol associated with the outside world, a simple green sign. It feels almost unreal. You push the door. Nothing happens. Locked. Your hope disappears for a moment. But then you notice a second passage nearby. It leads towards a service area. There is a faint sound of machinery beyond it, and for the first time, you realize something important. The facility needs infrastructure, electricity, ventilation, water, maintenance. All of these systems have to connect somewhere. You follow the signs, moving through unfamiliar spaces until you finally notice something you haven't seen since you were captured. Natural light. It is barely visible through a narrow opening, but it is real. You approach slowly. Then you see it. The outside. For a moment, you don't move. After days, weeks, or perhaps months without seeing the sky, the sight of open space feels overwhelming. But freedom is still not guaranteed. You still have to get away from the facility itself. You step outside. Cold air hits your face. You can hear wind. You can see trees. And above you is an enormous sky. It should feel like victory. Instead, you feel terrified, because now you realize that escaping the building was only the first part. You don't know where you are. You don't know who you can trust. You don't know whether someone is already searching for you. The facility might be isolated miles from the nearest town. Your body may be weak. You may be dehydrated, and you may have no idea which direction leads to safety. So you keep moving, not toward a specific destination, just away from the place behind you. Every few minutes, you look back. Nothing. You continue. Eventually, you discover a road, a real road. Cars pass in the distance, civilization. You have reached the point where you need help, but approaching the wrong person could create another danger. So you look for signs of ordinary life, a public place, a populated area, somewhere with people and communication. Finally, you see lights in the distance. You walk toward them. Your legs are exhausted. Your clothes are dirty. Your mind is struggling to process what has happened, but you keep going. When you finally reach other people, you realize something strange. Nobody knows what you have just survived. To them, you're simply a person standing in the darkness, asking for help. And that is when the reality of freedom begins to sink in. You survived. You escaped. But escaping a secret prison would not mean the trauma instantly disappears. The fear could remain long after the walls were gone. Loud noises might make you turn around. Locked doors might make you uncomfortable. Silence might remind you of the cell. Even sleeping in a safe room could feel impossible at first.
And perhaps the biggest question would remain unanswered. Why were you there in the first place? That question could lead investigators towards something much larger, a hidden network, an illegal operation, or a facility that was never supposed to exist. Your escape could become the first clue that exposes an entire secret system. But there is another lesson in this story. The human mind is incredibly adaptable. In extreme situations, survival often begins with something incredibly simple: refusing to give up. You don't need to know exactly how you will escape. You only need to keep looking for the next possibility. One observation, one decision, one opportunity, one step. And eventually, those small moments can become a path toward freedom. Because the most terrifying prison isn't always made of concrete and steel. Sometimes it is the belief that there is no way out. And the moment you stop believing that, you've already lost. But if you keep searching, keep thinking, and keep moving forward, even when the situation seems impossible, there may always be a door you haven't found yet, a way forward you haven't seen, and somewhere beyond those walls, there may still be freedom. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more dark, mysterious, and cinematic stories. And remember, sometimes the most unbelievable stories begin with a single question. What if you were the one trying to escape? Thanks for watching.